There's a small indie YouTuber you might have heard of before called PewDiePie, and recently he's transitioned from making videos about video games and other chaos to making videos about AI and technology, and they've actually been really interesting. He recently did a video titled "Stop Using AI Right Now," and despite what you might expect, I found myself agreeing with him in the vast majority of this video. I'm genuinely impressed with the work he is doing. From building a machine with like 8 GPUs to run models locally, to building his own open source T3 chat competitor. Yes, he built his own open source competitor to my service. It's kind of wild, but actually genuinely cool. And there's a lot of takes in this video that I want to break down a bit further and give a bit of a support push from my side as a developer. I'm scared that the nuance of his takes here is going to be missed, both because he's not a tech person, he is like a famous YouTuber, but also because he makes it very personal. He talks about how he feels about things and the way he's using them in a way I think can be learned from and generalized much more. I'm really excited to dive into all the fun things he said and try to break them down more. But unlike PewDiePie, I don't have the money around to buy 10 4090s, so we're going to have a quick word from today's sponsor first. It's never been easier to set up a new project, but there's two things that continue to annoy me every time I try to do it myself. Those things are auth and payments. They just aren't pleasant to do unless you're using today's sponsor, Clerk. These guys have figured both out. I've used all the competitors in all of these spaces, and in the end, I just find myself longing for the experience I have using Clerk. From their best-in-class components to handle all the different auth UI that you don't feel like dealing with, even things like the table to compare different subscription tiers is included because they now have payments built in too. Seriously, Clerk billing is just one of those things I've wanted forever that makes so much sense now that I've been playing with it. You just attach the billing status to the user, and they manage all of the stuff behind the scenes for you. No more praying that your configuration between Stripe and Dev, Stripe and Prod, and your actual hosted infrastructure and the database holding it is all going to stay in sync. Just call clerk.user.the field that you care about in the subscriptions, and you're good to go. You create plans in the back end, you give features to those plans, and now you can just use their components where you can protect this component, feature team access, show it if they have team access, and render a fallback if they don't. And on the server side, you can just call their has function to check what plan they have and if they're allowed to do a specific thing. Isn't that how it should have just worked the whole time? It's so annoying seeing this and looking at the pile of crap I built myself to handle subscriptions in a platform like T3 Chat and wishing I had just used Clerk. If you haven't tried it yet, it's free. Go give it a shot. Adding it to Next.js is like 5 steps if you do it by hand, or you can one-click open in cursor, hit enter, and then you're good to go. Like, that's it. It's that easy. Seriously, though, I've been blown away with Clerk since I first tried it, and I find myself longing for it constantly. Check out what you're missing at soydev.link/clerk. So the first chunk of this video is him building this insane machine and also plugging protein folding, which I think is a really cool thing to plug. If you're not familiar, one of the cool things you can do with GPUs that isn't AI is donating compute to companies and mostly charities that are trying to learn more about proteins and health research by running these really complex mathematical things. And you can just let your computer run that stuff overnight with programs like Folding at Home, which lets you use your GPUs to hopefully potentially advance science instead of mining Bitcoin or some shit. Really cool stuff. But that's just like the fun intro talking about all of the utter chaos that he's engaging in and one of the things he's using his 8 4090s for. But after that, and his ad break from Saley, which is an eSIM company for people who travel the world a lot. Check out the description in his video if you want to learn more about that. I want to talk here about AI stuff, though. That's what we're all here for.
If you have this many GPUs, you at least gotta try running AI on it. And I'm not gonna lie, it became my next big, I have to max out. What's the biggest model of AI that I can run on this computer? That's what I wanted to find out. And it turns out, it's complicated. You know, this computer costs $20,000 roughly. In terms of running AI, that's relatively cheap. That's what I was trying to say. Because the cost for running AI is like, it goes from here to, no, I can't make that joke. The cost for running AI is just bonkers.
I don't think people understand the depth of this take, and as gentle as he is with it, the absolute chaos of how these prices ramp is insane. AI Code King's in chat, which is very useful. Thanks again for stopping by, man. Just for context, he's running about 6x RTX 4000s and about 2x RTX 4090Ds, which is China modded for 48 gigs of VRAM GPUs. This is another one of like the real fun things that people do now. Since VRAM quickly becomes a bottleneck for running AI with a GPU, because you need to have all the parameters in memory for it to run efficiently, the amount of memory you have can matter a lot more than the amount of power you have, which is kind of insane if you just think about it. But the more you dive in, the more you realize it's very real. The A100 by NVIDIA is their like tensor GPU. It has 80 gigs of RAM. This is one of the like cheaper options for a tensor core for doing accelerated GPU stuff. And this GPU alone goes for $20,000. So if you were to compare this to an, I don't know, RTX 5090, which has way less VRAM, it's 32 gigs instead of 80. And this card supposed to MSRP at like 2 to 2.5K, they go for 3K. How much more powerful do you think the A100 is than the 5090? So you would imagine with this price gap and the huge gap of VRAM, 80 gigs versus 32 gigs of VRAM, you would expect the A100 to be way faster and more powerful. And if you're measuring this by how big of a model these can run, the A100 can run bigger models much better because it can fit over twice the amount of stuff in VRAM. But the thing that blew me away that I never would have guessed until I was experimenting with this myself, because I run AI stuff on my 5090 personally, and I was playing with an A100 in the cloud, the 5090 is faster. I never would have guessed that. The 5090 crushes the A100 because the A100 is costing this much money almost entirely because of the VRAM, not because of the actual performance the chip gets. VRAM is not a good measurement for how powerful a graphics chip is. It is just a measurement for how much shit it can hold. That's what RAM is. Putting more RAM in a computer doesn't make it faster. Putting more RAM in a GPU doesn't make it faster. It increases the ceiling for how much you can put in it at once before you have to leave memory and hit other storage, which is way slower. If you have a 70 gig model, you can fit that on an A100. You can't fit it on a 5090, which means that you're not going to use the 5090 to its full speed. And now you have to wait for it to go hit your actual storage and get it off of a drive. This is also why there's an underrated GOAT for using large models. There is an actual computer that you can buy from a major company that is way cheaper than what our friend PewDiePie just did that can run much, much bigger models surprisingly well. The Mac Studio. There's a lot of people who are very mad at Apple for daring to make a computer that doesn't have upgradable RAM. There's a very big reason for this, though. The 96 gigs of RAM on this M3 Ultra model isn't 96 gigs of RAM for the CPU. It's 96 gigs of unified memory. It's on the chip, the one chip that has the CPU and GPU and their equivalent of tensor cores all on the same chip, which means you can use all 96 gigs for a model. Or you can upgrade it to have 512 gigs of unified memory. This computer might seem disgustingly expensive at $9,500 because it is. That's a lot of money for a computer. But when you're comparing it to a GPU and the GPU costs 20 grand and has less than a fifth as much memory, you see why a Mac Studio, if your goal is to have the biggest model at a reasonable speed rather than a reasonable model at a high speed, actually makes a ton of sense. You have to balance out these different pieces when you're speccing out a machine to run models. You have to have enough RAM to fit the model, but once you hit that amount of RAM, more RAM stops benefiting you. And then you want to have enough CPU or GPU or whatever you're running on, probably GPU power, to actually traverse all that data in memory and generate whatever you're trying to generate. And our friends over at NVIDIA take as much advantage of all of this as they possibly can. They arbitrarily restrict how much VRAM is on a lot of their GPUs because a fucking 3060 with a ton of RAM would be worth so much to a lot of people. So they don't do it. Instead, when they put more than 30 gigs of VRAM on something, they make it way more expensive and call it an enterprise GPU. This resulted in a crazy underground market in China where people are modding the GPUs to add more RAM on older, cheaper, less well-supported GPUs so they can use them for crazy AI stuff. It's a very interesting space. And once again, AI Code King is dropping really useful knowledge here. The RTX Pro 6000 is one of the best values for money for any iGPU right now because it's as fast as the 5090, roughly. I've seen mixed reports on it, but it's close. And you get 96 gigs of VRAM and it's only $9 grand. Only $9 grand. Fun. Yeah. All very useful info. And all of that said, PewDiePie here was comparing these crazy system prices, which makes sense because for the amount of compute he wanted, because he really wanted this to be fast and super capable, but didn't think quite enough initially about how much VRAM was necessary to run the things he wanted to run. Yeah, these prices might seem insane, but 20 grand for a basic AI system is on the low end for sure. I would still argue that something like the Mac Studio would probably make more sense in that range, but there's a lot of debate to be had here. It's actually a really interesting thing to think about when you're trying to spec out these machines. I was just showing the A100 price. The H100 is a much more expensive GPU. This is the flagship to an extent. They don't list a price anywhere because they don't sell these to consumers. You buy these GPUs from NVIDIA as an enterprise, usually in bulk, but you can get them resale from companies like Asa here for around 30 grand, even though market price is like 44. Really, you can now get H200s for around the same 30 grand, but if you want a box with a bunch of them, like the DGX, $500,000. Yeah, this shit's intense. And these are the GPUs that our favorite models are all running on in the cloud. Like if you're using GPT-5, that's not going to run on a system with a bunch of 5090s. That needs way more RAM. These big models are big. They're hundreds of gigs. The B200 is apparently the best option right now, and those are $50,000 each. And an 8 GPU server is $500,000. A full NVL with these chips could be up to $3 million for one box. That's insane. And then there's the power costs too, because these GPUs are using so much power. One B200 can consume 1,200 watts of power. That's insane. Enough about that, because just wanted to go a little deeper on the cost profile of these things, because he literally had this on the screen for 5 seconds, and I think this deserved more time because gamers don't understand. Like, they see a 5090 for 3 grand, they're like, that's way too expensive, and they don't understand how crazy this gets.
Stupid. Okay, so what AI did I run? First, we have to make some things crystal clear.
This is one of my favorite parts of the video, so I really want to hone in on this next piece. This is about different types of AI.
I do not F with image generation or video generation. I don't really have that strong of opinion about it, but all the drawing nerds supported me in my drawing video, so I stand by the drawing nerds, as a fellow drawing nerd myself. I genuinely think AI art looks ass. It looks bad. You can tell immediately it's AI generated. And the art that does look cool has been straight up ripped off from another artist. So why not just look up the artist? I don't get it. I can see it being used for the lowest stock image or piece of a background or something, but more than that, I just think it's lame. Second of all,
quick round of applause for PewDiePie for having a really good and based take about AI art. I agree with pretty much every single word he just said, and am going to do the thing I do where I take his words and go even further with them, because he was a little too kind to an extent here. The Oatmeal, which is one of my favorite comic strips, recently published his takes on AI art. And this is also full of bangers. When I consume art, it evokes a feeling. Good, bad, neutral, whatever. When I consume AI art, it also evokes a feeling. I like the example of the AI art here. It evokes a feeling until I find out that it's AI art. Then I feel deflated, grossed out, and maybe a little bit bored. Feeling's not a choice. I'm not deciding to hate it. I'm not like, oh, here's something really good, but I'm choosing to hate it because it's a threat to my livelihood. It's because when you know it's not made by a human, that it wasn't made with emotion, and it feels worse. You don't feel the same when you watch a movie and say, hey, what the fuck? These dinosaurs aren't real. Part of it's the magic of thinking, how did someone make this? But more of it is that every detail was chosen. Like when you look at a piece of art and there's something in it, it was put there by a human. They might have put it there by accident. It might be an error in how they painted. But the art itself, every detail was decided or at least agreed upon by a human. When I AI generate an image, there is so much going on that I probably didn't decide on. It's very different, and the result feels very different too. There are uses for AI in media work. Like I use it for generating specific assets in my thumbnails sometimes. I use it for generating backgrounds sometimes. I use it for removing backgrounds quite often. There are things that AI is good for as they augment our work as creatives, the same way they augment our work as developers. When you use the AI to replace the work entirely, the result loses so much intent that it just doesn't feel right. And it sucks that so many of these AI media tools aren't trying to augment us as creatives to be more creative and more successful with our work. They'd much rather replace us entirely. And that sucks because we did not do the same thing for developers. We didn't start by promising to automate developers away with tools like Lovable. We started with the promise that we would make our developers more efficient by helping with things like autocomplete. Autocomplete was how most devs first experienced AI in their coding experiences, not as AI coming out and saying, hey, we're going to replace you, the way they do with these things. And that sucks. There's another thing that makes this suck a lot harder, though, and I think about this far too much and have been waiting for a video where I could really go in on this, and I am so thankful for PewDiePie, of all people, to let me do this. LLMs generate text. These media models are usually diffusion models. You can use diffusion models for other things. So I'll say diffusion models usually generate media. I want to talk about this a little different. I'm going to ask you guys a question. What percentage of generated text do you think gets read by a human? When these AI models that we all use for all sorts of things nowadays are generating text, what percentage of that text do you think ends up being read by a human in the end? Just drop your gut feels. You got a 1%, 10%, 30%, 10%, 40, 10, 10 to 15, 5, 1% if that. I'm going to be real with you guys. Seeing a couple numbers higher than I would ever guess, I would be really surprised if it was more than like 2%. But what would the use of this be if humans aren't reading it? Very simple. Text is useful for things other than being read by humans. When an LLM generates text, it's not necessarily generating paragraphs for a person to read. Sometimes it's generating tool calls for some other code to use to execute. Sometimes it's generating reasoning data that we don't even get to see. I would bet that a significant portion of OpenAI's text generation isn't even sent to people because the text being generated during the reasoning section doesn't get sent to us. It's sent in the form of a summary to us, but there is so much text data being generated by these models that we can't even access. It's just not effectively there at all. The majority of text being generated by LLMs is not being used by humans as a thing that they consume. The vast, vast majority of how LLMs are generating text and the text that they're generating is going towards doing other shit. Be it using it as context to make the model smarter when it responds, be it tool calls to get better results, be it code gen that no one's reading in the first place. The vast majority of the text data being generated by these LLMs is never actually consumed by a human. So why am I talking about this? What percent of generated images gets seen by a human? If the answer here isn't 100%, then it isn't working at all. There is no value to a generated image other than a person looking at the image. That's the point. Obviously, there is so much value to LLMs outside of generating a thing for a human that has made it worth investing in heavily, researching, building, and making this crazy business that's probably a bubble. I'm not going to say AI isn't a bubble. At the very least, LLMs have value outside of generating text for humans. But when they're generating images, they're generating video, they're generating music, those things are all only useful to humans. Those are not useful outside of the use of another human consuming them, or, God forbid, training another model with them. That's the only value of AI-generated images and other media types. AI-generated text can be used to automate things. AI-generated media can be used to take jobs. That's all it's good for. Straight up. And that sucks. That really sucks because there's so much money going into this thing that isn't useful outside of human consumption. LLMs can be used to generate slop, but they are useful outside of it. Image generators can't be used to do anything other than generate slop. I hate this fact. When this clicked for me, it made me so skeptical of so much shit. So much shit. Someone said it's not true. Barcodes, QR codes, those are made for machines, not humans. I dare you to try generating a QR code with an image model. Do it. Watch what happens. QR codes, barcodes, and all those things are generated programmatically with really, really simple algorithms. That's not an AI generating an image. That is a simple transformation. I think this is all pretty obvious and apparently true when you think about it. It's just a thing people haven't thought about much. Code and text to some extent is kind of logical. Images and video are not. That's why it's hard for even humans to do. Image gens can be used as a tool. Only use it like once in a month for a random asset. Yep, this is roughly exactly where I am, AI Code King. One of like 30 thumbnails might have some part that is AI generated because it's easier than going into dev tools and making a whole fake UI to have a fake conversation between Microsoft and Google or whatever. They are useful as tools within our creative process, but that's all these things are. The value of image gen is slop, memes, and some asset generation. The value of video gen is a shitty TikTok clone that nobody used after the first week, and they could no longer violate copyright. I don't think there's any use for AI music gen. It's just fucking bad. It's so bad. Every time I hear one of those like AI generated songs, I cringe so deeply. Yeah. I think the media gen stuff is the cringiest shit ever. I'll be much harsher on it than PewDiePie is for these reasons. I have less to lose by embracing the media stuff. Like if he does, he gets like axed from the entire YouTube community. If he was to say, I think video gen is cool, he'll never be respected by other YouTubers. I can say it and get away with it because I'm a tech bro, but I hate it more than him. So let that stand for what it is. I think all the media gen stuff is fucking cringe. Anyways, back to his video, because point 2 he makes here is another thing I have strong feelings about.
I do feel like I'm in a weird place with this because I'm gonna yap about AI here. And I hate people yapping about AI. I genuinely can't stand it. Seeing AI everywhere is so irritating to me. I went to a hotel last month and they were like, we have AI generation integrated in the hotel room. I'm like, great, stop.
So based, so real. I have a confession to make based on this one, actually. You guys might have noticed that I just kind of went from an AI skeptic to arguably an AI channel, where it's a huge part of the things I talk about, the products I build, and a lot of the other things that happen that I'm associated with now. People think it's every video. It's not. I have plenty of videos still where I don't talk about AI stuff, but it's important, it's interesting to me, and I have a lot of opinions, and I want to talk about it. It's not money. People seem to think I'm doing this for money. I'm not. I could have joined this bandwagon early last year and made way more money. I've probably lost millions of dollars by getting into AI as late as I did. But I got in because I was interested in it. DeepSeek V3 was mind-blowing. It's like, oh my God, this is so much faster and cheaper than any other model, and it's roughly as smart as Claude 3 is. That's super cool. I want to play with this more. And I got really deep in. But the thing that I haven't admitted much is I was scared as hell. I was so nervous about talking about AI because I would read the things others said about AI and feel like it just didn't make sense. I'd read the sentence of like, none of this clicks, none of this logically follows. I don't get this at all. I don't know if I'm smart enough. I don't think I'm quite cut out to have my own place in these AI conversations. And then about a month into me deep diving and researching and figuring out everything I could, reading the DeepSeek papers, just nerding out about it obsessively for like a month, I realized the reason everything else didn't make sense to me is because none of them make fucking sense. The vast majority of AI influencers don't know jack shit about AI or influencing and get away with it because there was not enough content about it at the time. To this day, I still see the most brain-dead AI takes on Twitter all of the time. I see a ton of them on YouTube as well. And thank the fucking gods, there are now good AI YouTubers now. I'm not saying I'm one of them. I still think I'm one of the less good ones, honestly. But one of the best ones has been hanging out in my chat for most of the filming of this video. Where are you, AI Code King? He is great. He is one of few AI channels that spawned later because there needed to be better discussions on how these things actually work as a developer using AI. And AI Code King is one of my favorite AI channels now. Thanks again for stopping by, Code King. In his words, the reason I'm doing this is very similar for why he started his channel, because there was no channel like LTT for AI. That's what he wanted to be. And I'll tell you straight up, Code King, I know people at LTT that see you this way and watch your shit, so you're very much succeeding. If you ever want an intro to Luke, let me know. I'm more than happy to intro you, man. Good shit. There's also AI Explained, who is fucking awesome. I love all of his stuff. I've learned so much from it. There are this small pocket of really good AI channels now that just didn't exist before. And I assumed I was the one who was wrong until I went a little deeper and realized, no, it is indeed the shitty crypto influencers who switched to AI because they wanted to make more money that were wrong. Crazy. But yeah, I have the same fatigue PewDiePie does when he's talking about this here, because there are so many influencers that don't know jack shit. There are so many companies that don't know jack shit. There are so many fucking like hotels and things that are just trying to embrace AI because they think that saying AI enough times makes money, similar to how saying NFT too many times theoretically could. And this makes it feel like a bubble. It makes it feel useless. It makes it easy to be angry at the whole thing. And anyone who is pissed about AI because they hear about it too much, don't see any value in it, they just see the potential threat of jobs being taken and all of these big companies making way more money for no reason. If that's all you're seeing, you should hate AI. Those things all suck, and they are the most visible part of AI. And I think it's a great thing for him to call out here because a lot of his audience probably has experienced AI through those bullshit things. And as a result, when they see him embracing it, associate him with those things and get mad. So I'm very thankful he touched on this because the problem goes way deeper than he even seems to know. The majority of the time you're hearing about AI, it's because someone's being paid to talk about it, not because someone's actually interested in it. And I am very thankful for the small number of resources from people who actually just care a lot about this shit. Oh, one other shout out. Simon Willison. Simon Willison is the creator of Django, one of the most important frameworks in the history of the web. Simon Willison also runs a blog that has quickly become a largely AI-focused blog. It's one of my favorite sources of information about AI. This is awesome because Simon just got into it and now is a good source of information on it, not because he was paid to. In fact, he makes criminally too little money, and I've been harassing him now for months to start taking sponsors. And he might finally, fingers crossed, take his first sponsor soon, as long as they're not conflicting with the interests of him. He really does not want to let a sponsor bias him. I totally get it. I have so much sympathy for where he's at and how hard he's trying to do this right. But Simon deserves to make more money than he is. He's making a couple thousand-ish from his subscriptions for people on his newsletter, and that's it. This is such a valuable source. He should be paid for it. Let's go back to the video.
Even here on YouTube, the AI features are so useless.
Oh, God. Let's do a fun experiment, actually. Let's go to YouTube Studio and see what it suggests are videos I should make. Here's the Content tab, and here's the Inspiration button. This will generate ideas for videos, as well as really cringe thumbnails. $100 for an AI to learn me. What the fuck? What even is this? What is it even trying to say here? Are they using fucking GPT-2 for this shit? GLM versus Claude for serious coding. And look at that beautiful thumbnail. Are you joking? 4, the TypeScript problems still here 2 years later. The surprising evolution of developer tools. GitHub, can we trust private repos? That one's almost good. But it's so funny that even they don't seem to understand the relationship between thumbnails and titles, where they're just repeating the title in the thumbnail. Oh, God, it's so fucking cringe. It's so bad. It's so bad. Selling AI to learn me $100. Please respond. Actually, though. Oh, God. Coke's still doing AI video gen ads. This is so cringe. Like, why? Why? There's no reason for this. You're fucking Coca-Cola. You can afford a real ad. I hate this shit so much. I hate this so much. Apparently, the $100 for AI thing is influenced by the nano chat videos because those did really well. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Good call it. Back to PewDiePie. This next part is where he starts to touch a little closer to home. This is where we get to finally talk a bit about coding.
I've been learning how to program as part of my tech journey. And then I saw this thing programmed locally offline on my computer. My soul just left my body. I was like, well, there goes that ambition. I'm just kidding, by the way. I still think it's an amazing skill to learn, and I've been enjoying it so much because it's like it takes up so much focus of your brain. But I also find it really cool to see your own computer write code for you.
I have a lot of thoughts on this part about how AI can motivate but also demotivate programmers. Also, a good call out from AI Code King. That was him using Aider, which is one of the OG AI coding CLI tools, like the first one. Also, the creator of one of the first really good benchmarks for AI code stuff. Yeah. PewDiePie's walked in and is really doing the developer thing right. Like, he recently embraced the shit out of Linux and did a great job there. But this is a thing I really want to think about and touch on a bit. The idea of like both Does AI mean we should stop learning how to code? But also, can AI help us as we learn how to code? These are things I've touched on in a couple different videos, but I want to take the opportunity to go a little bit deeper because on one hand, AI is absolutely changing the shape of the software development industry, but it's also a really good tool for learning and advancing your learning faster. There's been a running joke in software development forever that we're just Google searching things and copy pasting from Stack Overflow. Yeah, you're probably doing that a lot if you're a junior dev, and you're probably looking at sources and docs and things a lot, even as an experienced dev. You're thinking more than you're actually writing. People seem to think, like when they're not necessarily yet coders, that their typing speed is what blocks them from being successful as a dev, and that you can't code faster than you can type. Some of the best devs I've ever known still like hunt and peck with 2 to 3 fingers on each hand. There are a lot of great devs that don't type properly at all, because dev is much more about thinking and properly understanding the systems you're building than it is about how fast you can fucking type. But that means you need to understand the systems that you're building. And that's where I find the AI tools get dangerous. To use these tools to better yourself, you have to never let them go beyond your own knowledge. You can't let the AI agent go write code you don't understand yet or solve problems you don't know how to solve. These tools are way better when you use them to solve problems you already understand, but want to go focus on something else. If you already know how to implement a calculator on a web page, then maybe let the AI generate that while you go solve something you don't understand as well. And if you want to better understand something, don't ask the AI to do it. Ask the AI how to do it and to teach you the right way. Ask it to explain things. Ask it to elaborate on things. Ask it questions, not to do tasks. If you let the AI do things you don't know how to do yet, if you let it extend past your own knowledge, you're not going to build that knowledge and you're not going to understand what it does. This is also why I push for hiring managers and people who are in the process of hiring people to at least be decent at the thing they're hiring for. Because you won't be a good manager, you won't be good at hiring, you won't be good at finding the right person if you don't understand the thing you're hiring for. All the worst managers I ever had as an engineer were people who didn't code. And one of the best ones I ever had stopped coding, but got really nerdy about it a few years before, realized he was better at people than code, but understood it well enough to understand who was and wasn't pulling their weight and ask good questions in meetings and be useful. Don't let the AI go beyond your capability if you also want to be useful. And I think that our friend PewDiePie here did a great job with this. On one hand, he's inherently limited because he's only running local models, which are really cool. We'll talk a bit more about local models momentarily. But those local models are nowhere near as good at coding as some of the ones you can run in the cloud are, like Claude and GPT-5 and all of these things still meaningfully outperform any model you can download and run on your own machine. So he's limited by how good they are at coding through that. But he also seems to be making a very deliberate choice to use these tools to augment his abilities and learn rather than go past his capabilities as he is learning. I don't know if there's going to be a good place to talk about the local model thing, so I'm going to do it now because I don't know if there's a good spot in the video. Local models are really, really cool, not because they can be just as smart as the really fancy common ones in the cloud, but local models are useful for a ton of other things. They're useful in the sense that like you're not sharing the data so you can do more personal things with it. Possibly the only real use case for image and video models. If I have images that I don't want to give to some other provider or cloud, like images of people that have passed away that I care a lot about, and I want to just enhance this photo and increase the resolution, I don't want to send that off to Google to do for me. I don't want people to have these assets. This is my very personal data. And using these tools to work with that data on my machine offline allows me to use them for things I would never otherwise touch them for. It also allows for lower latency, less reliance on external processes, and more ownership and control, which are almost always really good things. It's nice to own and trust the things you use and not have to worry about the Claude model suddenly performing way dumber than it did before. It's a very nice thing to own, understand, and control that stuff. Even if the power costs for running my local GPU to do an image generation is roughly as expensive as it would be for me to outsource it to a better model in the cloud. Still hilarious how expensive the power side is, but yeah. That aside, local models have a lot of potential benefits, especially around data you might not want to share. I don't want every image in my phone to be accessible by Apple. I don't want Apple to know every single thing I've ever taken a picture of on my device. But if when I take a picture, my device can categorize it and add tags when it looks at the image, when it processes it, and now I can search cat in iPhoto and have all of the photos of cats that I've taken appear immediately, that's a really cool use of a local model. There's a lot of reasons that local models can be really good. And the idea that they'll be just as smart and powerful as the really nice ones we use in the cloud is just straight up fucking delusional. We're not trying to replace GPT-5 with something that can run on our phones. Anyone who's saying that or expects that in the future is delusional and doesn't get this shit at all. There will never be a 3 billion or 10 billion parameter model that performs as well as what we see from GPT-5 today. The science does not allow for that to happen. That said, there are things we can do with those limitations that are really useful for us on a day-to-day basis that we might not want to have running in the cloud. There's a lot of good uses for local models, and I'm thankful for people like PewDiePie for exploring this. I don't see a future where we're buying $3,000 boxes to run in our apartments to have our local AI at the average household, the way we have a random like Amazon box that lets us talk to it. Like, we're not going to have NVIDIA-powered AI boxes in everyone's houses. That makes no sense for a billion fucking reasons. Same reason we don't have servers at the average person's house. But our phones doing this could make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. There are some models that are getting close. I know Minimax is really, really good. The Minimax M2 model is around 200 billion parameters and gets somewhat similar performance to Sonnet 4.5 for coding. Very, very exciting. Someone saying that in 3 years max, there will be 1 billion parameter models that are better than GPT-5. I'll put a lot of money down on that if somebody wants to. I'll gladly bet 10 grand plus on this. There's no world in which that happens. Anyways, next favorite piece. We're going to talk about AGI a little bit.
When you host AI on your own, it's not going to be able to do anything. It doesn't have search, it doesn't have memory, it doesn't have any functions whatsoever. You can just talk to it. So I started giving it all these features, but I made itself give those features. I was like, Marzia, check this out, Marzia. The machine is making the machine. I don't know, I just thought it was really cool. Okay, welcome to my tutorial. No one has so far made it through the entire demo. So a true testimony to your attention span. This is like the meme of like, my buddy's gonna show you this, you have to pretend you like it. PewDiePie's gonna show his web UI, you have to pretend you like it. First off,
I do like it. I think it's really cool that PewDiePie is making his own UI. That said, as cool as making your own UI for AI chat is, if you want one that has every single model for a way better price, T3 Chat is something I built at the beginning of the year because I got really excited about AI stuff. And it's only $8 a month, and you have access to all of the models, like every single model you'd ever possibly want to use. And as soon as the new ones drop, we go out of our way to get them added as quickly as possible, including Minimax, which was just recommended by our friend AI Code King. If you want all of these for $8 a month, I have bad news. Your first month will only be $1 if you use code PewDiePie at checkout. Yes, every model for a whole month for $1. The UI is fun and all, the smart models are cool and all, but there's a piece that he touches on here. He's punching up in a way that I would not expect him to understand this early in his AI journey. That's a thing I've been feeling and thinking a lot about. And once again, is a thing I'm really excited to go into a bit more.
the second thing, I was running these tiny models, 2B, only 2 billion parameters. You could probably run this. I think most computers can probably run this. You could run it on your phone, although it'll be very slow. But I realized smaller models are amazing. They're really dumb because they don't have any information stored on them. So they start hallucinating and coming up with gibberish. But literally, you just give them search and boom, it adds a nanosecond to the query and that's it because they're so fast. You give them RAG and you have an amazing tool for fast information. I feel like that's what I think AI is good for. That's what I want to use it for. And that's when it hit me, like, you don't need this beast computer to run AI at all. It's all about the tool set you give it.
Louder for those in the back. You don't need the smart model at all. What matters is the tools that you give it. That is a piece of wisdom that we as an industry are still trying to learn ourselves. Like, I know so many places that just refuse to accept this fact and are going so hard on trying to squeeze slight bits more of intelligence out of these models instead of embracing the fact that the models are limited by what they're allowed to do and the tools that they have access to, not by how many parameters you can stuff in it. AGI is not a smarter model. AGI is going to be a set of tools for a smart enough model. I've been thinking this for a while now. And you can even look at benchmarks that show this. Most of the new benchmarks we have, especially for software stuff, have two pieces. There's obviously the model that is running, but there's also the harness, the thing that it's running in, the set of tools it has access to do things like traverse the code base, look information up online, apply changes to the code. that harness of tools that the models are given to work within is as if not more important than the model itself is. And these tools have been the big improvement we've been focusing on throughout the year. The whole idea of an agent is, for the most part, a model allowed to run with tools so that it can complete multiple tasks and get the data it needs to complete those tasks. We don't need super smart models to do that. We need models that are super good at calling tools correctly to do that. And we're finally starting to see a surge of LLMs, both big, expensive, fancy ones from the big labs, as well as cheap ones from those labs, as well as open weight models from the likes of Moonshot with Kimi, as well as Minimax, and even things with the GLM models too, where they're finally giving us open weight models that are good at tool calls, which means you might have a really small model that isn't very smart, doesn't have much information in it, but it can get the information it needs by using your tools. That is really, really exciting. And it's awesome that he's realized the value in his AI isn't necessarily that the model itself is super smart, he can run it locally. It's that the tools it has access to enables it to get the right information at the right time. Huge realization for him to have, and I'm pumped to get to talk about this idea a bit more, because people seem to think that the upgrade from Claude 4 to 4.5 is going to change the way they code forever. When in reality, a lot of the change, a lot of the things that make that good are improvements to the tooling around the model. And a large part of why these other models feel so good now, why something like Minimax V2 is as incredible as it is because we can throw it into these really good harnesses and it knows how to operate them. We need to stop thinking of models as the vehicle for this crazy stuff and more as the driver. But now we have to build it a car. The model can't go anywhere if it doesn't have the right vehicle to go there with. And we got to build that for it. And it's also really cool that throughout his video, PewDiePie is using the models and using the tools he has to add new tools to build new things. The idea of the model being able to improve itself, not by making itself smarter, but by building itself the tools it needs to get more information, to do more and affect more, that is really cool. Also requires really careful sandboxing and a lot of thought to make sure you're safely enabling the models to do these things. But right now, we're not in a models need to be way smarter surge. We're in a models need much better tooling to do what we want them to do surge. To go one step further with this, the big thing that means AGI will happen is when the models get smart enough that they can make themselves smarter. I don't necessarily know if that can happen, but what absolutely can happen is the models can give themselves better tools, eventually building their own tools, making their own code, and executing that code. That is how the models can self-improve. Not by making the brain in their head bigger, but by making the car they're driving better. How hilarious is it that through a 20-minute PewDiePie video, the gaming YouTuber, we got to touch on the entire ecosystem of AI stuff, from why I don't like media generation stuff to how we actually get to AGI. It's kind of wild that he managed to hit so many of these things in one single video. It feels like the only thing he really missed here is AI psychosis, which thankfully Eddie Burback just made a groundbreaking video on. This is one of the best YouTube videos ever made. ChatGPT Made Me Delusional by Eddie Burback. Going to a video that's not on my channel after you watch one of mine is a really big anti-signal to YouTube because it says other people's content is more interesting than my content to my viewer. Despite that, I'm still plugging this video because I do actually think it's that good that I'm willing to take a hit on my channel for it. Highly recommend it. Eddie killed it. 11 out of 10. That's all I have on this one. Thank you, PewDiePie, for the absolute chaos. Still can't believe that his video titled "Stop Using AI Right Now" is this good of a source of AI information, and I hope I have given you a good reason to think about it more deeply. Let me know what you guys think. Am I overreaching here, or is there actually good information from this video? I'm curious what y'all feel. Until next time, peace nerds.